We were here to live our life on purpose and do what makes us happy. And I think it doesn't mean that we have to, we need to just do that. And we need to take confident steps to do that. And we don't need to over-explain ourselves.
Because I have PhD students that are like that, and they'll turn around and say, I'm doing this, this to do this in my future. And then you'll say to them, okay, but what made you want to do that? And there's always a kind of lean to, well, my dad wanted me to, and then their reason after it is always really weak. So it's what their family are pushing them into doing rather than what they're wanting to do. And I always say you have to be insane to want to spend 4 or 5 years researching such a specifically tiny area to create a new piece of information, so you have to really want it, and to be doing it for somebody else. It just seems strange to me, but I had a bit of a more, I was going to say a looser mother, but that sounds really bad. Who kind of said, do your own thing, because her mum and dad were religious, so they kind of pushed them into going to church and stuff. So she always said to us, look, I don't care if you believe or if you don't believe, figure it out for yourself, go to church if you want, and we always took that as a kind of do our own thing, follow our own mission. But I had friends who were pushed into it. Like one of the friends at school, she took away his PlayStation controllers to make him study. She couldn't even let him make a decision on how he can study for his exams, because she needed to keep the virtue of, oh, my kid's the best. And, and she was doing it like a kind of, I need him to show reflected glory. And I found that really sad that she wasn't living the life that she wanted. But that's the problem, is like, how then do we say to a guy who's sitting just now going, look, I'm stressed, I'm worried, I'm terrified, drinking myself every night, but I can't talk about this. I can't, how would you start working with somebody? Like, say if we could finally get them to come and speak to you as a high performance coach, how do you start breaking down that barrier that we put in, that we have to be strong and silent? We're not to come and speak to you. We're not to admit we're failing. We're not to admit, we're not to come and do and figure it all out ourselves, because that's what a lot of guys, I don't know if you've seen that video of the girl ask, who do you speak to if you have a problem? And all the guys say, no one. I'm a guy. I figure it out myself. I have no one. I don't know who to speak to. How can we get guys to realize you don't need to be strong and silent? If you're dealing with something right now, stress, depression, whatever it is, come and speak to somebody like you to help them along this journey. How do you break that barrier? Because that might be the hardest thing, is admitting to yourself you have a problem.
Well, first of all, why? Why do we have that belief? Why do we feel that men should be strong and silent? Give me one good piece of fact or evidence that says that this is something that we should do. And then let's look at what the consequence of that belief is. Because suicide is the leading cause of death in men in the UK under the age of 50. So look at the consequence. Let's all be really, really clear of the consequences of us not talking about our problems and men keeping those things bottled up. I think when we break that down in terms of actually dealing with an individual, I think personally, how I do it is sharing my personal experience. And I think when you're vulnerable, and that's what I kind of try and do with some of my social media, is express my vulnerability, because when we're vulnerable, we're inviting other people to become vulnerable, right? So I can say, I see you, I hear you, I've been there, I've experienced this, I've lost my brother to suicide. Let's talk about this, and that kind of vulnerability in myself is inviting somebody else to break down. But I'd also ask that person that, one of the questions I love asking is, if you weren't to solve this problem, if this was to continue, where do you fear ending up in 6 months, in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? Where do you think you'll be? And ask yourself that really, really honestly, and get a really clear view of what your choices today about staying silent might mean for you in 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years.